Do you ever find yourself stuck in your own head, playing the same thoughts over and over again like a broken record? You replay a conversation, wondering if you said the wrong thing. You worry endlessly about a future event, imagining every possible thing that could go wrong. You get tangled up in what-if scenarios that leave you feeling exhausted and stressed. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. This is overthinking, and it has a very close and complicated relationship with anxiety. Today, we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind this cycle, understand how overthinking and anxiety fuel each other, and most importantly, explore practical ways to break free and reclaim your mental peace. So, what exactly is overthinking? At its core, it's the habit of excessively analyzing, worrying, or dwelling on a situation, often without ever reaching a solution or conclusion. It's like being a detective in your own mind, but the mystery never gets solved. Instead of finding clarity, you just find more questions and more worries. It might feel like you're being responsible or cautious by thinking through every single detail, but in reality, overthinking is a mental trap. It doesn't lead to better decisions. It leads to analysis paralysis, where you so overwhelmed by possibilities and potential negative outcomes that you can't make any decision at all. Think of it like a hamster wheel for your brain. You're running and running, putting in a ton of effort, but you're not actually going anywhere. You're just getting more and more tired. Now, let's bring anxiety into the picture. Anxiety is our body's natural response to stress. It's that feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. When you feel anxious, your brain goes on high alert, looking for a way to regain control and feel safe. And what's one of the first tools it grabs? You guessed it, overthinking. Your anxious mind tells you, if I just think about this problem from every possible angle, I can figure it out and stop feeling so scared. It seems logical, right? It feels productive. You believe that if you can just anticipate every single potential disaster, you can prevent it. This is where the cycle begins. Anxiety triggers overthinking as a coping mechanism, an attempt to solve the discomfort of the anxiety itself. You dive into your thoughts, hoping to find a solution that will make the anxious feelings go away. But here's the cruel twist. Overthinking doesn't resolve anxiety. It amplifies it. Instead of calming your fears, dwelling on negative possibilities and what-if scenarios just gives your anxiety more fuel. You start imagining worst-case outcomes, and your brain treats those imagined threats as if they were real. This sends a signal to your body that the danger is still present, which in turn ramps up your physical symptoms of anxiety. Your heart might beat faster. Your breathing might get shallow, you might feel a tightness in your chest. So, the very tool you're using to try and control your anxiety is actually making it stronger. This creates a vicious feedback loop. You feel anxious, so you overthink. The overthinking makes you more anxious, which then leads to even more intense overthinking. It's a self-perpetuating cycle that can feel impossible to escape, leaving you feeling mentally and emotionally drained, stuck in a state of constant worry and stress. How can you tell if you're caught in this cycle? There are some common signs to look out for. One is constant, unproductive worry. You're not problem-solving. You're just circling the same fears. Another sign is pervasive self-doubt. You second-guess every decision you make, big or small, convinced you've made a mistake. You might also find yourself replaying past events over and over, analyzing your actions and words, and cringing at perceived blunders. This is often called rumination. You might also have trouble sleeping because your mind just won't shut off at night. Physically, you might feel constantly on edge, tense, and fatigued from the mental marathon you're running every day. If you recognize these patterns in your own life, it's a clear signal that the overthinking anxiety loop has a hold on you. But recognizing it is the absolute first step toward breaking it. So, how do we break this cycle? It's not about trying to stop thinking altogether. That's impossible. It's about learning to relate to your thoughts differently. The first strategy is to simply become aware. Learn to recognize the moment you start to overthink. Acknowledge it without judgment. You might say to yourself, there's my mind doing that overthinking thing again. This simple act of naming it creates a little bit of distance between you and your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. This shift in perspective is incredibly powerful. It takes you out of the driver's seat of the runaway thought train and puts you in the position of a calm observer on the platform, watching it go by. Practice noticing when you've slipped into rumination or what-if thinking. The more you practice, the earlier you'll catch it. Once you've noticed you're overthinking, the next step is to challenge those anxious thoughts. Anxious thoughts are often distorted and not based in reality. They're usually exaggerated, catastrophic, and overly negative. So, it's time to put them on trial. Ask yourself some critical questions. Is this thought 100% true? What evidence do I have that this will actually happen? Have I been in a similar situation before? And did the worst-case scenario come true? Probably not. Then, consider alternative outcomes. Instead of just focusing on the worst possibility, what's the best-case scenario? What's the most realistic or likely scenario? By actively questioning your thoughts and considering other possibilities, you start to dismantle their power. You show your brain that there are other ways to look at the situation, which helps to reduce the feeling of certainty and doom that anxiety thrives on. Another powerful set of tools comes from the world of mindfulness and grounding. When your mind is spinning out of control, you need to bring your attention back to the present moment. Overthinking lives in the past or the future, but anxiety has a hard time surviving in the now. Simple grounding techniques can be incredibly effective. One is the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Look around and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This technique forces your brain to focus on your immediate sensory experience, pulling you out of the vortex of your thoughts. Deep breathing is another fantastic tool. Inhale slowly for 4 counts, hold for 4, and exhale slowly for 6. Focusing on your breath activates your body's relaxation response, calming your nervous system, and reducing the physical symptoms of anxiety, which in turn makes it easier to quiet your mind. Now, let's talk about scheduling your worry time. This might sound counterintuitive, but it can be incredibly effective. Instead of letting worry and overthinking hijack your entire day, you set aside a specific, limited amount of time, say 15 minutes every evening, to dedicate exclusively to worrying. When an anxious thought pops up during the day, you tell yourself, "I'm not going to think about that now. I'll deal with it during my scheduled worry time." This allows you to acknowledge the thought without letting it take over. When your worry time arrives, you sit down and let yourself think about all your concerns. You can even write them down. Often, you'll find that by the time you get to your scheduled slot, many of the worries don't seem as urgent or important anymore. And by containing the worry to a specific window, you train your brain to stop overthinking on command, giving you back control over your mental space for the rest of the day. Finally, taking action, even small action, is a powerful antidote to the paralysis of overthinking. Overthinking often keeps us stuck because we retry to think our way to a perfect solution before we do anything. But clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. If you're overthinking a decision, break it down into the smallest possible first step. What is one tiny thing you can do right now to move forward? If you're worried about a project at work, send that one email. If you're anxious about a social event, just decide what you're going to wear. Taking a small step builds momentum and proves to your brain that you are capable and in control. This action creates new information and experiences, which often show that your initial fears were unfounded. Action is the ultimate pattern interrupt for the overthinking anxiety cycle. Breaking free from the grip of overthinking and anxiety is a journey, not an overnight fix. It requires patience, practice, and self-compassion. Remember, if you're struggling, it's a sign of strength, not weakness, to seek help. Talking to a therapist or counselor can provide you with personalized strategies and support. There are professionals who are trained to help you navigate these challenges. Understanding the link between overthinking and anxiety is the first major step. By recognizing the cycle, challenging your thoughts, grounding yourself in the present, and taking small, actionable steps, you can begin to loosen its grip. You can teach your brain a new way to respond to stress and uncertainty, one that leads to peace and clarity, not more worry. You have the power to change your relationship with your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content on mental wellness and personal growth. Let me know in the comments which strategy you're going to try first. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.